We were talking about my friend Daniel Rivas and his new assignment in community preservation. So he was in charge of code enforcement, and now his organization includes housing, graffiti removal, animal care and control, parking enforcement, illegal dumping, unpermitted construction, and general property maintenance. Now, animal control is another contracted out. They contract that out with the county. So he doesn't actually do that by himself. But anybody that's been with us for a fair amount of time remembers the extreme neighborhood makeover and the problems that it generated more than the problems that it fixed. And all of a sudden, I would say about 2.5 weeks ago, I walked out my front yard and I noticed, I live on a corner, and I noticed that there was a code enforcement truck on one corner and a code enforcement truck on the other. And I didn't see any code enforcement guys. I was wondering what they were doing. So a neighbor came running down to me later and he showed me this flyer and he said, you know that there's going to be a meeting on April the 12th, and code enforcement has been around talking to us about what they do and asking us if we had any difficulties with our neighbors or so forth, to which I exploded. You know, I stayed calm in front of him, but I called Daniel. I said, Daniel, what are you doing? You know, the last thing you want to do is start a war between neighbors by having one neighbor report another neighbor, and we're back in that same situation, and this time I'm not going to be nice about it and help. So he assured me that wasn't the case. And then a few days before I left on my trip, I noticed code enforcement guys parked on the street, and I caught him. And I got a flyer, and I said, "What are you guys doing?" And one of the community preservation people were from graffiti removal, and they're kind of like the hero of our neighborhood, because they're the guys that just operate really quick. I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Well, we're going out telling people what we do, and you know, if you have a problem in the neighborhood or you got a neighbor that you're you know, that's an issue, you know, we can help you out." And I thought, oh my God, here it is, you know, because when I talked to Daniel, he says, "Oh no, that's not what we're saying." So we're going to invite Daniel here. He can tell it to us by himself. And for the most part, I've had a really good relationship with Daniel. And when there's been a problem, we've had some situations where I think the one that I was the most concerned about was a widow in her 80s that lived up in Upper North Oaks, and she got reported, and it had to do with kind of a hoarding situation, and Daniel was good in helping out, because you know, you got to show compassion about this stuff. You're going to find that when I talk about the next laws, a lot of things apply right here in Santa Clarita. You know, they'll sit down at City Hall and they'll pass an ordinance, and guess what? It doesn't change your house at all, right? You don't even know it got passed. And they won't do anything about it until your neighbor decides they don't like it, and they call, and then all of a sudden you're subjected to this. And the last thing that happened like this was, and I hadn't talked about this yet, was a person, I don't want to say who it was, a person who all of a sudden got reported because their whole front yard had artificial turf. I said, "What? You must be kidding me, right?" He said, "No, they told me that the front yard has to be 50% planted, so they want me to take out part of the turf and plant something." So I said, "Well, that means if you took out 50% of your artificial turf and you planted grass, that would be okay?" And she said, "Well, I guess so." I said, "That's ridiculous, right?" You know, everybody's talking to us about saving water, and all of a sudden you got code enforcement guys wanting you to tear up. So I mean, I spoke with Daniel. I spoke with Tom Cole, his director. I spoke with Oviedo, the assistant manager. I spoke with Ken, the city manager, and they all said, "Oh no, we'll do something intelligent." And after 3 months of hounding them, I went back and talked to the lady, and I said, "Has anybody talked to you?" And he said, "Yeah, they want me to bring a sample of my AstroTurf down to make sure that it meets the high quality standards that the city wants for turf." And I thought to myself, this is absurd, right? They don't have a standard for turf. There's not one in the. So anyway, she went down and she had some extra, and they showed her, and she said, "Oh, that's fine." And so then I went back to city council, and I said, "I know why the code was changed to say that you needed 50% planted. It had to do with the extreme neighborhood makeover when they went to the Benelli tract. And in the Benelli tract, all the houses are at strange angles, and they have detached garages. They're really cool. It's really a nice eclectic place. And the driveways kind of meander to the street. And in a lot of cases, they go through the front setback. So now, the code enforcement guys were perplexed. What do we do? And I said, "You're not going to tell people to take out their driveway, right?" So they said, "Well, we got to decide just how much the setback needs to be planted." And that's why that changed. So I went back and I said, "You know what? That's probably a little short-sighted in the way you worded that. Maybe you should go back and revise the code." And they said no. Said, "Well, next time we're planning something, we'll think about it. It's not. That's not the way to help our community, because what happens is someone else will get caught in that same situation, and if they don't happen to know me, they'll never know that we fought that battle over on the other side of the area, and people shouldn't have to fight the same battle over and over again. So keep that in mind, and we're going to go talk about the highlighted item of the evening.